Hey, I'm Dan Harris. I am a fidgety, skeptical newsman who had a panic attack live on Good Morning America.
To prescribe statins slowly for cancer production.
That led me to something I always thought was ridiculous, meditation. I wrote a book about it, launched an app, and now I'm starting this podcast to try to figure out if there's anything beyond 10%. Basically, here's what I'm obsessed with. Can you be an ambitious person who is nonetheless striving for enlightenment, whatever that means? Let's start the show. I should explain to everybody what we're doing. I'm Dan Harris. That's George Stephanopoulos.
Is there a camera
That's your camera right there. This is the 10% Happier podcast. This is a special edition for innumerable reasons.
I'm honored.
Because you're on. That's one reason why it's special. Also, we're doing this because the inauguration is coming up, and we're going to post this in a timely fashion. And also, we're doing it live on Facebook and on abcnews.com. I should say, just by way of introduction, for the 0.01% of humanity who doesn't know who you are, you've been a household name since the 90s. And I've been honored to call you a colleague since 2000 when I joined, and you were here since 98.
I came in 97.
97.
I get 20 years. I'm 20 years on Inauguration Day.
Wow, really?
My
Congratulations.
first day was the inauguration of Bill Clinton's second term.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so you are also, just so everybody knows, the chief anchor here at ABC News, which I guess makes you my boss on some level. And
hardly.
Certainly somebody I look up to for sure, and who's been a great advisor to me at many points in my career. You're also the co-host of Good Morning America and of the host of This Week with George Stephanopoulos.
Which means I see you every Sunday morning.
That's right, which is really fun for us, actually. And you're a meditator, so let's start with that. This is a podcast ostensibly about meditation, although in this case, I think we're going to talk about a lot of stuff.
That's your jumping off point.
Yes, exactly. It always sort of gets into strange areas. So how did you start meditating?
I had some friends who've been. Well, I should take. It's a longer story than that.
Go for it.
I first thought about it, got into it back when I was in the Clinton White House. So this was back in the early 1990s. And I had some friends who were deep believers in it, Transcendental Meditation, TM. And now I was, at the time, at first, even though I trusted these friends, quite reluctant, because my one hook in with TM was through this university they have out in Iowa.
Yeah. Which right, you must have run across it as a campaigner.
And at the time, John Hagelin, who's a brilliant man, was, I think, thinking about running for president, maybe in 1996. And I ended up having some sort of meeting, and
Wait, who's John Hagelin?
He's the head of that university.
Okay, gotcha. Which is the Maharishi University.
Yeah, I don't know the exact name. Yeah. He's a physicist. But they had some ideas about how, if everybody just meditated at the same time, we'd have world peace.
Yes.
That was kind of a little out there.
Yeah.
So I had some questions based on that, but I did try, and a friend gave me a mantra and taught me. It just didn't take, and I don't know what it was about my life at the time or my state of mind at the time, my spirit at the time. I couldn't keep it going.
Can I just ask you, were your friends who were into TM, Transcendental Meditation, were they political folks, Hollywood folks, just personal life?
Back then, it was the person is the one person who'd really taught me was was from California, but a political type, but just a wholly different kind of cat.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Interesting, lovely man.
Okay.
And this time around, I had this was now, I guess, about 5 years ago. I'm friends with Jerry Seinfeld, who's been, I guess, meditating since he was 17.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know it's been that long.
Long time. And we were talking about it, and we were just having a conversation, and he convinced me to try again. And
were you stressed at that point in your life? Was there something going on?
I was exhausted. I was about 3 years into GMA anchoring GMA, still doing This Week, many Sundays, 2 young girls. And anybody who's done GMA every day will tell you never really get used to the schedule, even though, even if you're a morning person like me, it's a physically grueling job. You just, for a million reasons, it's hard to get more than 5 hours sleep a night, 5 or 6 generally. 6 is good. 6 is fantastic. And part of the, what we were talking about, and part of the way, and I read about it at the time, and met with the head of the David Lynch Foundation, Bob Roth, who's just an amazing teacher, an amazing man. And he helped convince me that it would just, take all the metaphysics out of it and just focus on the health and stress benefits. And I thought about that and tried it and spent my 4 hours with Bob over 4 days and haven't missed a day since.
Okay, so can you, for the uninitiated, what is transcendental meditation? How does it work?
What it is you are given a mantra, and
Just a word you repeat to yourself silently.
a sound is what they call it. It's
Okay.
actually it's a sound. You repeat to yourself silently and simply try to focus on that mantra for 20 minutes twice a day. What I think ends up working, and actually I can't explain why it works. All I can tell you is that I was surprised, I was skeptical, and from the moment I understood the practice, and it doesn't take long to learn, I could feel the benefits. Now, what it is you focus on the sound. Now, everybody says, "Oh, I can't." First of all, what are the objections? I don't have 20 minutes a day.
40 minutes a day.
Well, 40 minutes a day.
Yeah.
I don't have 20 minutes twice a day. My schedule's too crazy. And I can't get these thoughts out of my head. My mind is always racing, no matter how much I try to focus on the mantra. I think the genius, for me at least, of this practice is that the first tenet is to accept the fact that your mind is always going to be racing.
Mm-hmm.
And when it happens, you accept it and move on and just try to bring your mind back to the mantra. What I can tell you, what it feels like when it's happening is a combination of dreaming, sleeping, resting, clarity, all at the same time. Now, to varying degrees at different times. Again, one of the other things that Bob especially taught me is that even on days when it doesn't feel like you're getting much out of the meditation, something is happening. And, I guess the analogy he uses, even if you only go put your toes in the water, you're going to get a little bit wet.
Mm-hmm.
So any day that it doesn't feel perfect, you don't stress about that either. What I found is that the practice, the discipline, is something I end up looking forward to for that twice a day. And in my mind and in my life, taking the 40 minutes out of my day it feels like to me like it's adding 4 hours to my day.
How is that?
Because of the rest I feel, how much more rested I feel after doing it, the sort of confidence I feel coming out of it, the groundedness. This is just an aside, but it's something maybe you'd relate to as a broadcaster. I find both on GMA and especially when I have to do special events like the inaugural coming up or any kind of breaking news, so much of what you have to do is sort of just be present in the moment to what is actually happening and be clear about that and try to communicate that. I find it much easier to be at peace with where I am and open and very present without having my thoughts get in the way of all that because of the practice of meditation. It almost feels like you get plugged back into that twice a day.
Can I just elaborate on that for
Yeah.
a second? Because I really do relate to that. And I think it's as important not only for broadcasters, but obviously
Life,
for the two of
know?
us. But yes, this is an exercise. This is a focusing exercise. Now, I do a different kind of meditation. You do transcendental meditation. I do mindfulness or Buddhist meditation, however you want to describe it. But they're both training the mind for very similar things. And really, you've got this mantra, this sound you're repeating to yourself, and then when you get lost, you start again. And in mindfulness, it's just you're feeling what the breath feels like when it comes in and goes out, and when you get lost, you start again. What that trains you to do is to be awake for your actual life and to break out of this fog of rumination and projection in which most of us operate all the time, an autopilot. And so when you're broadcasting live, it's very helpful to actually be paying attention to what's happening right now, because then your reactions to your co-anchors are more spontaneous. Your reaction to the news of the world is more genuine and spontaneous, as opposed to thinking 10 moves ahead, which is what I was always doing.
What I was always doing my whole life as well. And at varying times in my life, I struggled more with anxiety, and this has certainly helped with that. A very particular thing as well on this, again, going back to the sleep part of this, for many years, and it was exacerbated at times with GMA. It was worse in the White House, but exacerbated at times on GMA. I had the kind of insomnia where I could fall asleep fine, but I would wake up constantly during the night, worried about how much time I had left to sleep.
Yeah.
And the beauty for me of TM and doing it, I do it first thing when I wake up in the morning.
Which is at what time?
2:30.
Wow.
But I am getting up at 2:30 knowing I'm going to get better quality rest than the last hour of my sleep. I mean, I've convinced myself of that, and I do believe it's true. So it's like a bonus.
So you wake up and you're excited to wake up.
Well, not I'm excited to wake up so I can go get some more rest, I guess.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's nice when you wake up, your eyes don't pop open and
you're not panicked.
Yes, exactly. So I'm really surprised to hear you say, just because we've worked together for a long time, you said that you dealt with some anxiety in parts of your life. I was unaware of that, and I would never have guessed that based on just my observation of you. You seem very sort of focused and confident.
Well, that's the trick, right?
Yeah. My mother has an expression. My mother has this expression up on her wall that says the most important thing about acting is sincerity. If you can fake that, you got it made. So maybe that's what's going on.
No, but also I think I think I have, I don't want to tempt the fates here. I think in some ways I've grown out of it a little bit. I think it's always part of you, and some of it is physical, genetic, and but I've learned more about it, learned how to deal with it, and the meditation helps a lot.
So you do the first one at 2:30 in the morning. When's the second one you do?
Second one is I have kind of a weird day. I mean, so then I work from about 3:30 till about 9:15, and then I take a break. I go home, I work out, and I generally meditate after that before what is sort of the second part of my day, which is where I do more of my other duties here at ABC, work on my Sunday show, that kind of thing.
That's a long day every day. And then you work a lot of Sundays too.
Yeah, but I'm home for dinner every night. And, I have a fair amount of freedom with how I structure my day. And every day is a little bit different. But, most afternoons, unless something breaks, or unless we're going to a thing like the inaugural where I end up having a lot of meetings dealing with that, when I'm working, it's mostly reading things and talking to people about things that I care about and I'm interested in. So I guess that's a blessing that that's my job.
Absolutely. No question about it. So what would you say, other than sort of being a little bit more, to use an annoying cliche, present?
Also more patient.
Yeah. Okay. So what?
Yeah, definitely that.
Patient in what way? Like with your kids,
definitely that, and the best way I can say it feels like when it's working well, and nobody's perfect. I still have moments like anybody else. It almost feels like there's a little bit more of a buffer between, even as I'm more present on things I want to be present on, there's more of a buffer between me and the things that are annoying in the world, and the kind of, I can sort of take a beat before they, either maybe not before they affect me, because everything affects you, but before I react to it.
So yeah, there's a cliche that I hate cliches, but I love this one, which is that meditation teaches you how to respond instead of react.
Oh, I didn't know. That's a great way of putting it.
It's an amazing way to put it, and that to me is the sell. When I evangelize for meditation all the time, that's the value add for a normal life, which is that most of us are yanked around by this ego, this voice in our head, and we are eating when we're not hungry, or we're losing our temper when it's unwise, or checking our email in the middle of conversations with our kids or whatever. And this is what helps you. Meditation, this training, helps you not do that some percentage of the time. Maybe
I think
10%.
that's right. And there's something, I guess, also just about, there's something about the discipline, the practice, that reminds you are in control of your life.
Mm-hmm.
that you can, you can make the choice for how you're going to respond as opposed to react to things that are happening around you.
Absolutely, and that's an incredibly powerful thing. The other powerful thing is that I think most of us think of happiness as contingent upon exogenous factors, your work life, your home life, your childhood, all of which are super important. But in fact, actually, happiness is a skill. And that's what the science around meditation is showing us, that you can work your mind the way you can work your body in the gym. It's not going to work all the time. I can't make myself into Kobe Bryant, but I can make myself the fittest version of me that is available. And the same thing is true with your head. And the ceiling is much higher. The mind is not subject to as many sort of gravitational forces as the body.
And that goes back to what Aristotle, who taught you virtuous habits make a difference. By practicing virtuous habits, you may become virtuous.
Absolutely, fake it till you make it. And I actually, there's a quote that podcast listeners will know because I use it all the time, which is it's attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but I'm not sure it's true that he said it, which is. When I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That's my religion. And that is a game-changing proposition. And what meditation allows you to do is to see more clearly how bad it feels when you're an idiot.
I think that's right.
So we brought up Abraham Lincoln. That's a good segue.
Second inaugural, best speech in American history. Right?
But the first inaugural includes the phrase "better angels of our nature," and the second one is the
mystic
with
chords
malice.
of memory.
Yes, with mystic chords of memory, with malice toward none and charity toward all.
If Terry Moran were here, he'd be able to recite the whole thing for us.
This is ABC's Terry Moran, who is a genius. So they're both pretty great speeches. I'm not sure that I would pick one over the other.
But they're both up there. I think...
and they're short.
Yeah. Is it the second inaugural's especially short, right?
Yeah, it's pretty short.
Like maybe less than a page.
It's less than a page. I was reading it last night because it came up in the briefing book that you and I are both reading to prepare for the inauguration. It's like 7 or 8 paragraphs.
Yeah. And we'll see if... how much beyond that Donald Trump goes.
I think...
Although you never know. He's never given a short speech. His acceptance speech was quite long. His most gracious speeches have been after victories. We'll see if that happens on Friday. But everything else about this says that this is going to be an inaugural unlike any we've ever seen before, because it's coming after a campaign unlike anything we've ever seen before, and likely a presidency unlike any we've ever seen before.
How has this campaign been for you in terms of stress levels, and what do you project going forward? And when I say you, I mean you and journalists like you who are at tip of the spear dealing with the players.
Well, I thought a lot about that. Like just about everybody, I was surprised by the result. I think that looking back, it's forced us all to reevaluate how we do our jobs. I think this is a particular challenge, and it was in some ways, particularly frustrating in some ways because I think I interviewed the president-elect something like 48, 49 times over the course of the campaign, including on his first day. And he's clearly skilled at communications in some ways, but it was also, frankly, a challenge in that the kinds of, I believe, I can only speak for myself, that all through that, I was pretty vigilant about pressing him when he was saying something that was at odds with the facts, when he was saying something untrue, trying to clarify for the audience, press him for details on what his plans were, question him about some of his more cruel and outrageous statements and actions, press him as we would any politician have with any politician on contradictions between things he's saying now and things he may have done in the past. And, one of the things we saw is that if someone is determined to sort of bull through that, they can have some fair amount of success doing that. I think sort of that forces us to sort of reevaluate how we do our jobs. The conventional ways we cover campaigns, I think, in some ways failed the process.
What do you think we need to change? How do we change, I guess?
I think, first off, it just takes more time. We're sort of constrained on our broadcast, but it takes more time to, if you're not going to get satisfactory answers, or it takes more time to show why you're not getting them, or it takes more time to clarify what is actually happening, and to tease out what the effects might be on people who are watching. I think it means sometimes being willing to step outside of this, again, convention of where that balanced journalism always means simply putting up one voice from one side and one voice from another, and letting people make up their own minds.
Because sometimes they're objective facts.
They're objective, yeah, often.
Climate change, for example. Yeah, I mean, there is,
and we have to be willing to step in and say this is actually a fact.
Yes.
Even though we're facing a real challenge in that more and more
people don't care.
People don't care or don't believe it.
Yes.
And
they don't believe us. They don't trust us.
No, they don't trust us. And then you're living in a world where anyone can simply find a way to, sort of ferret out the facts that bolster what they already believe. And most people tend to do it. And even if that isn't true, it's not going to make, it's not going to mean that us presenting what we consider, even I just fell into it right there, what we consider the facts is going to be persuasive. No, there are many issues where there are facts. Not every single one, but there are many issues where you can just say, this is factual, this is actually happening, and we should be willing to stand up and say that.
But so in some ways, it seems to me like our only option is just to play our game. Like we
play it better.
Yeah, absolutely. Up our game, but play it. We can't change society. We can't change the fact that we may be living in a post-fact era. All we can do is report the facts as evenly as we possibly can.
And sort of say at one level the rest is not our business. That's what we have to do. But we will also be willing to take some of the blowback that is inevitably going to come with that as well.
And that's what I was getting at before when I asked about how this campaign was for you and how you think the next 4 years will be for you. Do you take a lot of blowback, and is that stressful for you?
You said it at the beginning, and I've been a public figure now for, unfortunately, going a long time, probably
92.
92, really,
yeah.
91, 92. So that's 25, 26 years. I stopped paying attention to not all of it. I'm a human being. Like you hit sometimes when it hits a huge volume, it. But I filter out almost all of that every single day. I don't read Twitter. I don't read comments. I'm not on social media. I'm not on. I know we're on Facebook right now. I'm not on Facebook. I kind of do my job, live my life, and obviously there are times when either I've made a mistake or got to correct something, or I'm getting hit in an especially egregious way. Where if it's something I have to deal with, somebody tells me.
Is meditation useful on this front? And will it be useful going forward, you think?
Well, I just think in the sense that I'm, more calm overall, sure.
Yeah. Do you think, in my world, because I'm in the meditation world so deeply, it can be a little...
culty?
Actually, not really. But like I'm in the secular mindfulness world. It's not necessarily culty, but it can be a little utopian in the sense that you hear people talking about it being the answer to all problems.
I mean, and I say no to like 99% of interviews about this.
Yeah.
Because resisting that, there's no way. What I'm saying now is honest, and if I was talking to a friend, I would be very honest. But there's no way to talk about it in a way that doesn't make you sound like a Pollyannish evangelizer.
Well, I think there is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's hard. But I spent 4 years writing this stupid book and
it's an excellent book. It's not a stupid book.
Thank you. You were actually an early and vocal supporter, for which I will be eternally grateful. But I think it's hard to do. It's a real challenge.
I catch myself when I'm doing it.
Well, my rule is I never talk to anybody about it unless they ask me.
Well, absolutely.
So there's that. And I do podcasts or write a book or whatever, but I put it out, but you don't have to download it or listen to it. I'm not forcing you to do anything. But like my wife doesn't meditate, and I don't lecture about it. Okay, so that's a pretty good piece of data. But I do think it's possible to talk about it as a form of mental exercise that's useful to you. It's not going to fix the whole world, but and hence the whole 10% happier shtick. That doesn't come off as culty, I think. At
No,
least
yeah,
not
I
to
think, yeah,
everybody.
I'm sure. I'm sure you're right. It's more the way I fear that I sound when I'm talking about it.
Well, but just getting back to this utopian idea that in my world, because I am now sort of so deep, much more deeply immersed in the meditation world than I was even before I wrote, even when I was writing the book, because I'm now this kind of like public figure within this little world. But I do find myself actually getting into a more utopian bent, in that I feel like as we enter this divided era, even more divided era in American politics, we've been divided for a while, actually this kind of mental exercise could be useful, whatever form you take.
But there's a difference in useful and utopian. I completely agree that it's
Yes.
useful. I mean, I'm deeply anti-utopian. I guess I believe in original sin. I believe we're all flawed human beings, not perfectible. I don't think meditation can make you anywhere close to a perfect human being. It just gives you some tools to deal with your imperfections. And that's just, I think, the human condition. Now, that said, does it mean we can make things a little bit better? Absolutely. And if you can make even your own life a little bit better, that's got to have ripple effects starting right there.
Well, absolutely on an individual level, but where I start, and I don't think it's utopian. I agree with you. I'm not a utopian, but I do think that you can start to have a societal impact. Just think about this: if the percentage of Americans who currently work out were now meditating, that would actually have an impact on behavior in the world.
Well, you think, and to give props to the David Litch Foundation, which who's headed by Bob Roth, who I learned from, they're now branching out in ways that I think are fantastic.
They're in schools in
they're
Chicago.
going into schools,
Absolutely.
and here
Yes.
in New York
Yeah.
City, they're going. They've petitioned the Veterans Department in Washington D.C. and they're working with veterans dealing with PTSD, and it shows that they believe will show a measurable impact in helping people deal with that. Women who've been the victims of sexual abuse or other kinds of trauma, they've gone into centers to help deal with that as well. I think that it can be a huge supplement to traditional counseling, medical attention, education.
Now, Bob Roth is a guy I know a little bit now, because we had lunch a few months ago and we email quite a bit. Who I agree with you. He's a really smart and nice guy. But something that he and I have talked about, and I wonder what your thoughts are about it, is that TM has such an interesting history because it is a sectarian organization, and it was headed by this charismatic guru, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was the guru to the Beatles, and et cetera, et cetera. And he talked about some things that are a little out there, like the world peace and give you the strength of an elephant, et cetera, et cetera. How do you deal with that?
I don't even think about it.
Ignore it completely.
Completely ignore it. Like I said, for me, going in, all of that background, which I've been exposed to a little bit many years ago, I just block it off. Doesn't affect my practice in any way. Something I've never really thought about. Like I said, I'm not into the metaphysics behind it that is useful to some other people. It's something I just don't pay any attention to. In the same way, I don't know if this will get me in trouble. I also practice only once a week, Bikram yoga. Mm-hmm. Lots of questions about the guy who started that as well. I don't like that. I don't endorse it in any way, but the practice to me in and of itself is useful.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair argument. I don't know much about the Bikram thing, but on the TM side, and I think Bob's done a really good job of saying, hey, take or leave whatever's
Absolutely.
going
It's
on.
one of the
here.
first things he said to me.
Absolutely. Interestingly enough, TM comes out of a Hindu background, and I practice
mindfulness comes out of a Buddhist background.
Exactly. One of the things that the Buddha himself said to people, which I find deeply reassuring, is, hey, I'm going to talk about a few metaphysical things, including rebirth and enlightenment, et cetera, et cetera. Take it or leave it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Do the practice. Yeah, his idea is this is exercise for you. This is a kind of therapy, a kind of medicine. Do it and see for yourself. And I find that, this is why you find a lot of scientists, et cetera, who are interested in Buddhism. In fact, Robert Wright, who's an evolutionary psychologist, I believe I'm getting his title right, is about to come out with a book called Why Buddhism is the Truth. And I think it's not a capitalized T, it's more like, this thing is true, and there are parts of it I don't like, but you don't have to deal with that. Mm-hmm. Basically, the truth is, there are many layers to the truth. The truth is you can train your mind, and you don't. It's what we were talking about before. Anyway, before I let you go, just some more about the politics here. Give us a sense of what your day is like on Inauguration Day. What is it like for you?
Well, we'll find out. This will be my The first one for ABC was back in 1997 in a very different role. This will be my, I guess, my third one. No, second one anchoring. And I hope not to make the mistake I made last time around. There's a lot of name checking and identification of people in the crowd. And last time around, in a quick moment, and I took it back so quickly, but I identified Bill Russell as Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Sports radio had a field day.
Yeah.
with that one.
Gotcha.
But what the day is, it starts. I may actually sleep an hour later than normal because I know it's going to be a long day coming out. But I lie in until 3:30. 3:30 or 4, we'll see. Maybe even a little later. But GMA is 7. We'll do GMA from 7 to 9. Yeah. And then really starting at 8:30 when you start to stream live as well, GMA kind of morphs into a special event, and we'll just start anchoring the coverage following all the different activities of the day, starting with the church service that the President-elect Trump will go to in the morning, that coffee at the White House where he meets with the first family for the first time in the White House. Well, I guess the second time he's met with Obama, that car ride with the two men to Capitol Hill, and of course the ceremony where he takes the oath. And then there's kind of a lull when the president-elect goes into lunch with the Senate and the House, and we more or less talk about the day. The next public event that we'll kind of narrate and follow is the departure of President Obama sort of mid-afternoon to Andrews Air Force Base, where he flies out for the last time on the plane that is generally called Air Force One when the president rides in. I think this one is going to be called, but it's Special Air Mission. This will probably be 29,000. The last one was 28,000. And then we cover the parade, and we'll stay on, I think, through the president's entrance in the White House, where he may be signing some more executive orders. He may sign them earlier at the Capitol, and we'll probably be on about 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
And when we look at you doing this, are you having fun? Are you tired? Are you nervous? What is this like for you as an experience?
It's I think the best part of our jobs is dealing with real news happening in real time, covering special events. I think it's a great privilege to have the chance to do it. I love the craft of anchoring a program like that and trying to weave together 25 different contributors with a story that is actually happening in real time and bring a sense of to our viewers of what is happening, the history behind it, the context, the personalities. For me, that's fun. I mean, people talk about flow and fun, and when fun is the definition when you sort of lose track of time. I don't even notice the time going by on days like the inaugural, nights like an election night. It's all happening, both very slowly and very quickly at the same time. I think, again, going back to the meditation, something about that helps me sort of slow everything down while I'm talking about it and bring people in. But the day just flies right by.
Yeah.
Then I'm exhausted.
Yeah, at the end of the day. What do you think it's going to be like for President Obama? You did this amazing interview with him that aired this past Sunday. I believe it was this past Sunday, or was it
another Sunday
10 days ago?
Yeah.
His exit interview, one of his final interviews in the White House. You did this incredible walk
from the residence to the Oval.
It was amazing, and also just watching you do it, knowing your experience in the White House, actually for me just lent it another layer. But he's going to be in a limo with a guy who campaigned on essentially shredding his legacy.
Every single bit of it.
Right.
Who he, President Obama, said time and time again through the course of the campaign was dramatically unqualified by both experience and temperament to be president of the United States, who said many times during the campaign to his supporters, everything we fought for is gone if this man gets elected. Yet, he has to, out of reverence for the office, for our democracy, feels a great responsibility to treat him with civility and not say exactly what he thinks about what's going on. Although he did also say, in my interview, that the election of Trump, which he did not see coming, he conceded that clearly, has probably changed how he's going to, what he's going to do after he leaves office. I think he'll be a little bit more involved than he planned to be, even to the point of, one of our special events tomorrow, he's going to do a press conference tomorrow kind of late in the game to do a press conference, but it is going to be his farewell press conference. We'll see how much he bites on some of the more difficult questions that might come his way. Certainly, I don't know if you saw right before we walked in here, his press secretary Josh Earnest gave his final press conference. He didn't hold back at all.
What do you say? I missed
it was he took on what President Putin said today about the hacking and Trump, and said that it seemed like Putin was reading the incoming administration's talking points. So that's.
And do you have any window, any visibility into Trump's state of mind as he goes into Friday? Is he excited, nervous?
I don't know.
Does he get nervous?
I've seen him a little bit nervous before. How can you not be? I mean, that's one of the other things. President Obama, who doesn't show his nerves very often, conceded. He said, that minute before I went out and gave the inaugural, the first time before I took the oath, I was scared. He said, I didn't want to screw this up. He said, even Kennedy was the same way. I have to believe that at some level that will hit President Trump as well. And I think we saw a tiny tick of that in that first meeting he had with President Obama on the Wednesday after the election. Maybe it was Thursday.
Even in his posture in that.
He was a sobered man.
Yeah.
He seemed to bounce back pretty quickly, but I thought that was a pretty telling tableau.
Yes. George, really appreciate you doing this.
Fun.
I know how busy
Thanks,
you
Dan.
are. It's really, really, really interesting. And let me just say, as a final thing, as well as my thanks to George, big thanks to everybody at the ABC News Live desk and the producers of this show, Lauren Efron and also Josh Cohan. And if you want to learn,
I actually do have to go.
Oh,
I didn't know what time it
go.
was.
See ya.
you guys.
Bye. You go. I'll keep talking for a second, but I'll see you later. And as George leaves, I also just want to say that we really appreciate everybody who downloads and subscribes to and listens to this podcast, 10% Happier, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to learn how to meditate, it won't be the same kind of meditation as George does, but there is an app called 10% Happier, which you can get in the Apple Store or at 10percenthappier.com. And we'll see you with another edition of this podcast coming up on Friday, a special one with my man, Jeff Warren. Thank you.